2022 Charleston County Historic Preservation Commission meeting. This meeting has been noticed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. This commission acts in review and recommending capacity for designations and removal of historic properties and districts. The commission also reviews proposed National Register of Historic Places nominations. The commission has final decision-making authority on certificates of historic appropriateness. My name is Tisha Smalls Brown. I am the chair of the Charleston County Historic Preservation Commission. To my left is Vice Chair Donna Gardner, John Wright, Jason Crowley. To my right, Pat Sullivan, Lori Leichner, who's coming in, and Melanie Millar. Seated facing me at the dais is Commission Attorney Mark Bell, Joel Evans, Director of Zoning and Planning. Joel, would you please introduce your staff?
Sure. On my left is Andrew Nelson, Deputy Director, Emily Piggott, Savannah Murray, and Marsha Miller. Moving around on them. And Josh. Yes, and I'll get her, yeah. And we have a new planner, Emily Wynn. She's joined us a couple weeks ago.
Thank you. I would like to remind you that in order to get a good recording of the meeting for the minutes, please speak loudly and clearly into your microphones. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the April 2022 meeting. Is there a motion and a second?
Approve.
Second.
All those who approve the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those who disapprove, say nay. The ayes have it. The next agenda item is HIST 04-22-0005, a request for certificate of historic appropriateness. Savannah, please discuss.
All right. This request is for a certificate of historic appropriateness to allow for a short-term rental, extended home rental at 1564 Highway 41, TMS number 583-0000118. Okay, that's not working. Okay. The subject parcel is currently in limited site plan review for the extended home rental with 4 bedrooms. Recently, a special exception was granted on June 6th from the Board of Zoning Appeals for the extended home rental for 73 days in aggregate during any calendar year. And there were 6 conditions attached to the BZA approval. The 6th condition has since been changed to reflect the Board of Zoning Appeals minutes from what was sent in your packet. Here's the location of the subject property when looking at the future land use for the county. And here is the location of the subject site when looking at the Phillips Community Historic District. Here is some information on the historic history of the parcel. This thing is messing up. Okay. The property is currently zoned Special Management S3 and contains a single-family dwelling unit and a garage. The future land use designation for this parcel is Urban Suburban Cultural Community Protection. The surrounding properties are also located in the S3 zoning district and contain either single-family dwelling units, an adult daycare, or a landscape business. Here is the aerial view of the subject property. And here's some site photos, the first showing the garage and the second the single-family dwelling. Here are some of the neighboring properties, the first photo being the adult daycare, which is directly adjacent, and that's across, the second being across the street. Staff believes that the criteria have been met and therefore recommend approval. One letter of opposition was received and no letters in support. The meeting was noticed as required.
Thank you. We appreciate staff's comprehensive report. Are there any questions for staff from commission members?
Yes, is the applicant available? Applicant is available?
Want to step forward?
Yeah,
Will the applicant please step forward?
please.
State your name and your address clearly, please.
My name is Alex Silvanarad, 1564 Highway 41, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina 29466.
Thank you.
In your request for the short-term rental, you were aware that this community had a historic designation?
Well, at first I didn't know that, sir.
Okay. Well, have you had a chance to talk with the community association in regards to this request in any way?
No, because this is our first time. We have no knowledge of what we got to do, and I just want to thank you all, the board, for giving me the opportunity to, speak and get my point across for them.
All right, that's all I have.
Anyone else?
I'm assuming that it's obviously zoned for short-term rental, 30 days or less for you being here. Is that correct? Is that zoning correct?
He would be allowed with what he was approved for was 73 days. It's required for you to have a special exception. So,
Okay. Which I believe it obviously needs. So that being said, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in support? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to this request?
Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Ford, 2906 Canyon Lane, Mount Pleasant. If I can have the time, I would like to say that we have nothing against the owner of the said property. Our opposition is we're basically, from the time I've been born, we're basically a residential community, and we think short-term rental is not in the character of the community, and then that might affect us going further as a historical designation. If the applicant lived in the area, he would only be able to have 72 days. Not living in the area, I don't see why they would be allowed to have it as a short-term rental. Short-term rental to us is more like a business. The few houses that are in the area that I know of that people might rent, they're normally to families, and the families have been there for a long time. To me, short-term rental is a backdoor way of having a business, in the community. If you look at a lot of the non-incorporated areas in Mount Pleasant, they almost basically no longer exist. From the time, if you look down 17 was my classmates and people that I knew. You could remember a house was there. That no longer exists. And our intent of having the community as a historical designation is to preserve that right of being able to have a home and then in turn transfer that to our children. We think short-term rentals or any type of rental in this area would basically put that in danger. Families that rent out a house and they become part of the community, weekenders or a couple of days, that's not a part of the community. They don't have an interest in the community. And so that's why we would request that you deny this, because it is not in tune with the characteristics of the community. But there again, we have nothing against the owner of the said property.
Thank you.
Please
Good
state your
afternoon.
name. Thank you.
My name is Jerome Vanderhorst. I am a resident of 1039 Theodore Road in Allendale.
But however, I grew up in the Phillips community, and like my neighbor, family member said earlier, I think with that short-term rental, it would definitely change the dynamics of our community. Short-term rental will be another way of, again, just piggybacking off what he says, of a way for a business to come in. And Highway 71 is, well, we don't stop growth. Highway 41 is a reservation community. It's not a community where we would like to see businesses grow. The people that's in that area are grew up there, have many family members, grandkids, cousins, and we would love for our community to stay the same as it looks now, because if you look over the town of Mount Pleasant, it's changing dramatically. And along with new business coming in and referring to short-term rental, we don't want to see the character of our community change dramatically in that way, that fashion. So I hope that you take our consideration to not approve for the gentleman to have short-term rental in our area, neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fred Smalls, 2959 Elijah Smalls Road. The Phillips community is a small rural community. We are a close-knit community, very family-oriented. We have worked and fought long and hard to preserve our community, our way of life, our quality of life. We enjoy the rural flavor of living, farming, and raising our animals. But most importantly, our values, our family, and our property. We try to preserve for the next generation. This is why we oppose the short-term rental. Short-term rental allows people to come into our community that don't live in the community to purchase property for the sole purpose, monetary gains. People coming in for a short period of time. We have no objections to anyone purchasing property in our community to live. In fact, if you want to, we welcome you. But if you want to use it for monetary gains, which is detrimental to our community, this is a backdoor to allowing commercialism into our community, which we have fought to keep out of our community. We have seen what has taken place where short-term rentals are becoming very prevalent. If you look along Highway 17, all these areas used to be black communities are now gone due to commercialism. And this is why we are fighting so hard to keep it out of our community.
Thank you. Anyone else? Before discussion, is there a motion and a second from the commission?
I make a motion to deny.
A second?
I have a question for staff. Do we have a list?
Is your microphone on?
Green light is on. Do we have a list of how many short-term rentals are in historic districts or are designated properties to compare?
I made a list of all the properties in this community, and this would be the only short-term rental in this community. There were only the other businesses was the landscape business and the adult daycare.
Do we know about other properties in our purview outside of this community?
We haven't looked at that, but they would get caught because they have an annual renewal requirement. Mm-hmm. So when they come in each year to renew, if, let's say there are some that were operating before Phillips became a historic district, when they come in at the end of this year into next year, then we would catch them when they came to renew their permits, and we'd have to bring them in front of the board again. Mm-hmm. But we can certainly get that information for you too. We only looked at Phillips for this reason, but we can look at the others.
Another question I have, if it's okay. Concerns were raised that about living in the property versus, what are the rules? What triggered this? Was it just having a short-term rental, or is there a difference between a person who lives in the property that does short-term renting and with the, so is that what's going on? Can you describe that process?
So if the property was owner occupied, you'd be able to do the short-term rental, and that allows you 72 days a year being owner occupied. If it's not owner occupied, the only option you have is the extended home rental, which requires Board of Zoning Appeals approval, and that requires the Board of Zoning Appeals approval, which can get you up to 144 nights in aggregate.
So because this is not an owner-occupied request, that's why they're both before us and had to do the BZA, or would someone Airbnb-ing that has lived in their property for 100 years have to go before us as well?
So he would have had to go before the Board of Zoning Appeals no matter what, because it's not an owner-occupied residence. But of course, because it is also an historic district is why he had to do both.
But someone who lives in their house and does short-term renting,
They'd be able to get a limited permit if they finish those process. And like if he were only doing limited, he'd be able to apply for the limited permit, but he would still have to come before the HPC if it were still in a historic district.
Thank you, Jason.
I have a question for staff as well.
Yes.
Tell me, is that landscaping and that wood company, how is that listed on the as a business? What is that listed under? Agriculture?
I'm not quite sure. You mean like on that specific business or in general?
Particular business, because I'm very interested in wondering how's it listed, and if it is listed agriculture, isn't it wood? Is it wood and landscape? Is that?
From what I saw, it was like landscaping, yard work type business. And because I did check through the permits as I was reviewing this, it was like a permit for like storage and stuff like that. I can't say for sure that they're not doing anything on the property, but based on what I've seen in visiting the site and the permits, it's more like where the business, the office is, and where they store products.
I guess it's my concern is because of the fact that how it's listed, we could, create a problem for what we potentially see in the future. So that was just my concern.
I might be able to help a little bit with that. There was a period of time in our ordinance where landscape businesses were allowed in S3 that has since been removed. I can't remember if it was allowed with special exception or with conditions, but there was a point in time where they were, and that's when this business established. That has been removed from our ordinance and all of the S3s since then. So that's why that particular one was established.
I have a question.
Okay.
Mr. Evans, is that grandfathered because of the fact that it was?
Yes.
And is that the same with adult daycare center as well?
The daycare center, I believe, is still listed as a special exception in our ordinance in that zoning district. So that there is a process for the daycare, another daycare like that one to be established in the S3. But again, it would come before this board.
Okay.
Right.
Is there also the ability for someone to do long-term rental since it is a designation? Could someone rent their home?
Yeah, the board would not see any, because we don't have any regulations in our ordinance that addresses if you're going to rent your house for more than 30 days.
Okay.
So that's just, our ordinance does not address that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Pat.
There.
It's on.
I've heard, over time, I've heard different people from the Phillips community complain about businesses, commercial businesses, that keep creeping up to their properties. And what comes with it is crime. And I've heard them say directly they don't like those businesses because there are crimes committed there, and they say the first place the police go is the Phillips community, looking for whoever did this crime. So I'm very concerned about this short-term rental within what it could be used for within the Phillips community, because they're getting bombarded already.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. The applicant has already spoken, but he motioned to me that he would like to speak again. Can he make additional comments, or is that period over?
Was there a motion and a second?
He just raised a
Was there a
hand.
motion and a second up here?
Yep.
Is it up to them?
That's it.
Madam Chair, then if you'd like to allow the applicant to speak, you can allow for that.
Okay, you can speak.
The reason I want to speak is that, Charleston is a beautiful place to come and visit. You got 6 to 8 million tourists coming every year. And the city of Mount Pleasant is the same thing, Isle Palm, beautiful beaches, And what I'm trying to say is that when people come to a short-term rental, they don't stay in the house all day. They do what they got to do. They get up early in the morning, 8 o'clock, and, go downtown for food, the culture, and the beach. And late at night, they come home and they rest. And the next day, they do it again until they check out. And what I'm doing is same thing, respectable place. And people are running my place. The reason I'm doing this because me and my wife, we're trying to move here for the past 3 years since we bought the house. My wife, she's a nurse up in North Carolina, and we're trying to retire here. And I live in South Carolina 25 years. I live in Charleston downtown for 5 years. And I love Mount Pleasant because it's quiet. But if I want the nightlife, I go to downtown. And we bought this house for retirement, and she's been trying to apply for work in Mount Pleasant for the past 3 years with just no opening. And right now she's so overwhelmed by COVID patients, so she can't come with me today. But what I'm saying is that my community, like I said, it's nice, but it's not that nice at all. When you look at, everybody keeping their yard, nice and all. You got my neighbors selling food. My neighbor in front of the yard got this big 18-wheeler truck parking there, look like a storage, whatever, right in the front yard. And you got young people riding ATV in the yard, in the street. How does that not making the community look bad at all? Are we in what do you call that? The city, or we in the rural area where people can just burn their trash right in front of the yard? I mean, that's what I'm trying to understand. What I'm doing is I kept my yard clean. I have people come in to cut the grass every month. I come in here and check the house every month. I was here 2 weeks for the board meeting, and I'm here again. I'm going to come here again in the 16th for my daughter's birthday. We love it here, Charleston, Mount Pleasant. If I have a choice, I would never want to rent my house out, because the reason for that, because my wife, she can't get a transfer from over there here because there's no opening. I've been trying it for years and years. It's not like I'm going to make the place look so much worse that people are partying at the front yard, kids throwing beer bottles. No, it's not that kind of business. People come in, they do what they got to do, and they go about their business. By the time they want to check out, they go home. Same thing, just like any otherwhere in downtown Charleston. You have Airbnb everywhere. People want privacy. That's why they want to go Airbnb. You can go to a hotel, but there's so many people. I've been there. There's nothing wrong with that. But, What I'm trying to do is a respectable business, not something that's going to make the community look bad. I mean, I'm having people scheduled to, to do fencing, landscaping, put electric gate and all that stuff to make it look nice. But I'm not going to do anything without, the city approve it, That's what I'm trying to get my word across.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for letting me speak.
Okay, there are no further discussions. It is time to vote. All those who approve the motion to deny, say aye.
Aye.
Those who disapprove, say nay. The ayes have it. This is the final decision of the Historic Preservation Commission. If any person with a substantial interest in the decision of the Historic Preservation Commission chooses to appeal this decision, they may do so to the Circuit Court of Charleston County. Such appeal shall be filed within 30 calendar days after today's date. The next item on the agenda is HIS 05-22-0056, a request for Certificate of Historic Appropriateness. Emily, please discuss.
Thank you. This is a request for a Certificate of Historic Appropriateness to allow for the construction of a single-family home, accessory pool house, and shed expansion at TMS number 02900000002, which is Brooklands Farms, and it is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. So the subject property is currently in site plan review for a dwelling group, and there have been several recent certificates of historic appropriateness applications for this property, so it might look familiar. The first was to paint the exterior of the historic home. The second was to demolish a non-historic barn that had an unpermitted upstairs dwelling. And then the most recent application, which was in February of this year, was to construct an additional new dwelling and an accessory structure with a pool to create a dwelling group and to retroactively permit an existing shed on the site. So to compare that with what's being proposed today, this new application is proposing no new structures beyond what was approved by this commission in February of this year. The accessory structure is now being referred to as the accessory pool house, and it has increased in size and shifted in location slightly. The secondary dwelling has increased in proposed size, shifted in location and orientation. And then this current application requests for the shed to be expanded, where the previous application in February had retroactively permitted that shed on the site. Here's the location of the subject property when looking at the county as a whole. The property is currently zoned AG10 with a future land use designation of parks, recreation, and open space. Here's an aerial view of the property, which contains a single-family residence and a barn. Surrounding properties are also zoned AG10 or AGR and contain either single-family residences or mobile homes or vacant land. And on this slide, you're also able to see the approximate locations of the proposed secondary dwelling, accessory pool house, and shed expansion, all in relation to the location of the historic plantation house. 16.7 acres of the subject property are included in the National Register listing and contain the historic plantation house, the remnants of a landscape yard, a pond, and a small family cemetery. Here are photos of the subject property. And here is the site plan that was previously approved by the commission in February. And the new proposed site plan. Again, you can see there are no additional structures being proposed beyond what was approved in February, but there have been changes to the size and location of the secondary dwelling and accessory pool house, and they're also now proposing to expand the existing shed. Here you can see both of those plans side by side. Depictions of the proposed secondary dwelling and pool house. And here the applicant has provided a depiction of the view shed from the historic home. And here is information about the proposed shed extension. The applicant has provided responses to all of the applicable approval criteria. Because the approval criteria have been satisfied, staff recommends approval. This meeting was noticed as required. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in support of this request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to this request? Before discussion, is there a motion
I have a question
from the commission?
for staff. And can someone point out where the boundary line is on the site plan for where the historic district is and isn't, or designation is and isn't?
Let me, so if you follow me, Jason, here, the existing drive where you can see, actually, I think Savannah set this up for me, so maybe, there we go. See where this driveway goes? Essentially, the listing is everything east of where I'm drawing the cursor right now to the water. Does that clarify?
Yes, thank you.
Of course.
Is there an approximation, Mr. Young, you might be able to answer this more directly. Can you tell me how much closer the pool house or the building shifted towards the line?
The pool house shifted actually about 30 feet closer to the marsh,
Okay.
So not much closer to the house, and it's currently 580 feet from the historic house, and I don't know the approximation from the line.
Sure. Shift just for floodplain reasons?
Actually, just to get a little bit closer to the marsh, we mapped out where the X zone was and just shoved up just a little bit.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
How much of an expansion on the shed have you now gained with the?
So it's 14 by 24 heated space, and then a bathroom, which I think is 10 feet by 8 feet. So it's about, what's that, about 300 square feet heated, and then about another 150 unheated.
About 450 square feet total?
Total, yes, sir.
Expansion?
Yes.
And that's toward the marsh, you said?
That one's a little to the, in the picture to the left, away from that live oak, and it's, it replaces some of the stuff that was demoed when we demoed the barn. A lot of that equipment didn't have a place to live, and so this was sort of part of it needed a place to live. So that's why we're asking for this.
So, but that, would the material used be the same as the material that's on the
Shed now? Yes, yes, sir.
So are you proposing just to fill in the remainder of the bays, like that one is filled in that picture?
Yes, the doors are currently on the bays, and then we're proposing a door for the new one, and then that little bathroom, just for, so if you're working around the property, it's easier to use a bathroom that's not in one of the houses.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak from the commission?
Just a question, the secondary dwelling, how much increased size are we talking on that as well?
I didn't have a good answer for that. The first time was about how large it was. It's currently about 5,000 square feet heated. So, but it is smaller in height than the historic building, and it's over 1,000 square feet away and off of the designated district, and not visible from the main approach. So, and just for a little background, there are two siblings that have purchased this property with their spouses and children. So the idea is that one house is for one sibling and their family, and the other house is for another sibling and their family, and the pool house is a meeting spot for all of them. That's why it's the size it is.
Huge. Thank you.
Is there a motion? In a second, we did that already. Is there a motion in a second?
I move to approve.
Second.
All those who approve, say aye.
Aye.
Those who disapprove, say nay. Excuse me, the ayes have it. This is the final decision of the Historic Preservation Commission. If any person with a substantial interest in a decision of the Historic Preservation Commission chooses to appeal the decision, they may do so to the Circuit Court of Charleston County. Such appeal shall be filed within 30 calendar days after today's date. The last item on the agenda is HIS 05-22-0057, a request for a certificate of historic appropriateness. We will hear from staff.
Thank you. As stated, this is a request for a certificate of historic appropriateness for the installation of roof-mounted solar panels at TMS 583-0000130. The subject property is within the Phillips Community Historic District, which is listed on the Charleston County Historic Designation List. So the Phillips community was designated in August of last year. Here's the location of the subject properties when looking at the county as a whole. And also a closer view of the location of the property within the Phillips Community Historic District. The Phillips community is a Reconstruction-era South Carolina Land Commission platted community where former plantation land was subdivided and sold to black and white landless farmers and tradesmen. Most parcels are narrow and rectangular in shape and oriented towards the roadway, while larger parcels are located around the perimeter of the platted boundary and along the waterway. Most properties within the district contain the original homes, and if are subdivided at all, only to grant to heirs of the original landowners. The subject property is zoned special management S3 and contains a single-family dwelling unit. The future land use designation is urban, suburban, cultural community protection. Surrounding properties are also zoned S3 and contain either single-family dwelling units, mobile homes, or an adult daycare. Here's an aerial view of the subject property. On the right, you can see the proposed site plan with the solar collectors shown in red on the roof of the single-family residence. On the left here, the design details of the proposed solar array. Here are photos of the subject property and neighboring properties. The applicant provided responses to all of the applicable approval criteria. And because the approval criteria have been satisfied, staff recommends approval. And this meeting was noticed as required.
Thank you. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in support of this request?
Callie Hudgens, Renew Energy Solutions. I would like to be able to answer any questions that y'all might have about the project.
Question, so I'm looking at proposed mounted solar collector. It's going to be on the roof, so it's visible, correct?
It's on the rear of the home, so it wouldn't be visible from the street. No, ma'am. Yes, it would be on the rear roof plane, all one single array.
Okay, so that's the frontage, and it'd be on the back side.
Correct.
And behind this home is what?
Trees.
Trees, no other properties.
It shows you there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition of this request? Before discussion, is there a motion and a second from the commission?
Make a motion to approve.
Further discussion? No further discussion. Yes?
Being a solar panel user, customer, I think it's marvelous that this is happening, and hopefully it can catch on in Phillips and other areas around here. My electric bill is about $13 a month, and I have 17 solar panels. So this person is going to be very happy with their new solar panels. Highly recommend them.
I agree with that, but I also think that it's important that they are placed in locations that are not, dominant. So I appreciate your letting us know that.
Got some extra money, don't you?
For a vote, all those who approve the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those who disapprove, say nay. The ayes have it. This is the final decision of the Historic Preservation Commission. If any person with a substantial interest in decision of the Historic Preservation Commission chooses to appeal this decision, they may do so to the Circuit Court of Charleston County. Such appeal should be filed within 30 calendar days of this date. If there are no further business, this meeting of the Charleston County Historic Preservation stands adjourned. The commission will hold its next regularly scheduled meeting on July 19th, 2022 in council chambers.
Joel or Martin?
Just like a
It's a little bad.
bad.
Yeah.